Hey guys, it's Lee. I've got a little information before we have the podcast. We're teaming up with IKEA for their Swedish Midsummer celebration. If you want to join us at the IKEA Draper in Utah on Friday, June 16th, we're going to be there for their celebration. And what it is it's a smorgasbord, and they've got two different seating times. They got a 4 p.m. and a 6:30 p.m. The details are Friday, June 16th, 2017, at the Draper, Utah IKEA.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a smorgasbord.
Can't miss that.
No, lots of food.
Yeah, and if you can't make it to Draper, Utah, you should probably check out the IKEA in your local area.
Yeah, there's lots of IKEAs everywhere. See if they have a smorgasbord as well. Hope to see you guys there. Right, bye.
Hey, Lee.
Yeah?
What do you call a group of men waiting for haircuts?
What?
A barbecue.
That's good.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast, where the brain and belly meet. I'm not Sharon. I'm Ike. I am her significant other. She is from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Lee. I'm Winter's husband. And I'm filling in for Winter, and she's from theredparty.com.
Nice.
This week, Ike and I are on the podcast because it is
Father's Day.
So make sure you get your man something.
Yes. If you don't have a man, that's okay.
Get yourself something. This week we're talking about barbecuing. So let's talk about it. We're not talking tacos. We're talking meat. Let's meet about it. Hey, Ike.
Hey, Lee.
How's your week been?
It's been good. It's been busy, but good. And
it's the beginning of summer, so.
Yep. Kids are out of school. It's a good time.
Good time. Hey, anything interesting that you ate? Good, bad, ugly?
Yes, actually. A good friend of mine catered a wedding from a mutual friend. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Bee's Knees Waffles.
Well, thank you.
They happened to give me some extra batter that I took home and cooked the next morning for breakfast. And just cooking it in a regular waffle iron was amazing. Did a little caramel and chocolate with some whipped cream. It was excellent.
Well, thank you. I didn't pay you to do this, but thank you.
You gave me free batter.
Free batter.
Anytime.
I'll give it to you anytime I want. Anytime you want.
What about you? Anything new? Anything exciting?
Well, yeah, we've sort of been sick this week at home.
It's too bad.
Yeah, well, what do you do? I made homemade sandwiches. They're really good, like hoagie sandwiches and stuff like that. And, you put everything in the kitchen sink on it. So you toast the bun, and you got some really nice sliced meat, avocados. I like all my condiments. So we had
nice
spicy mustard and stuff like that. It was refreshing. It was light and refreshing.
You made yourself a Dagwood, huh?
Dagwood. Just pile it high with everything.
For you younger listeners, Dagwood was a comic strip character
from Blondie.
There you
Blondie go. Was his wife.
Yes. And
the Dagwood, he would put anything and everything in, bread and meats and cheeses and pile it high, 3 feet. The Dagwood. And now for the main course. All right, let's get down to our first topic at hand.
Barbecue.
Yep, barbecue. Ike, do you barbecue much?
I do. I love to barbecue.
We have one of those, I want to call it an Aussie grill. It's just one of those crappy aluminum, metal, whatever.
Hey, it gets the job done.
It does, but it takes too much to start barbecuing. So I was actually really excited to talk about this because I'm not really good at barbecuing. Learning about it helped me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a split grill. I have it's partially one side is charcoal and the other side is propane. I love it. So I get the best of both worlds.
You get the best of both worlds. All right, Ike. The history of barbecue is sort of controversial.
How so?
Well, when the Spanish came to the Caribbean, they used the word barbacoa, which meant slow roasted over a wood platform, and they witnessed the native tribes cooking their game that way. The native tribes would wrap them in green leaves and cook them over green trees, green wood, so that it would smoke a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Spanish started to do that as well. And when the Spaniards came up through Florida, and then when the English came over, that style of cooking was sort of adopted by the colonialists here in America.
I can think of a couple of examples of still being used today with your, you got the Hawaiian luau pig and the New England clam bake.
Yeah, traditions never die.
That's right. That's why they're traditions.
Yeah. And so some of the other history of like the regional types. There's a lot of regional variations in barbecue, and a lot of them is centered around the pig. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of barbecue uses pork because pigs were a cheap animal to own as colonists. If resources became really sparse, they would just turn them off into the wilderness, and they became wild pigs. They'd go hunt them. They were a little leaner, barbecuing them low and slow over coals. Because there wasn't as much fat on wild pigs, it was good. The low and slow, you didn't dry it out too fast. And so pork became the meat of choice for most barbecues.
Well, it's a delicious animal.
It is. I like it. I'm going to focus on for 6 different regional types of barbecue. There's the Memphis type, which is pork and dry rubbed, and it's cooked the whole in a big pit. Traditional Memphis is a big pit, skewered, roasted, and it's usually served with a tangy sort of tomato base sauce. That's traditional Memphis. The North Carolina is pork, and it also has a spice and vinegar rub that they based on the pig.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I won't turn down any barbecue.
No, not at all.
And they roast the whole pig in the east. But in the western part of North Carolina, they'll just do like the shoulder or the butt or something. And it's served with a ketchup-based sauce. South Carolina, the pork is roasted with a spice and vinegar also, sort of like the North Carolina that based it on. And it's served with a mustard-based sauce that has brown sugar and vinegar in it. So that's one of the big differences between North Carolina and South Carolina. It's a mustard-based sauce
as opposed to the ketchup.
Yeah,
nice.
And there's reasons for that. When I go into the sauces, there's reason for that variation.
I'm excited.
Kansas City, no meat is off limit.
Right.
They would barbecue anything: pork, lamb, chicken, turkey, beef. Doesn't matter. And they cooked it over hickory. That was in my research. That's what it said. Hickory was a must, and it was served with a sweet molasses and tomato sauce.
Oh, that sounds.
That's Kansas.
I think Kansas City style is probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, and thanks to big corporations like Hunt's and stuff, Kansas City sauce is what's typically people think of as barbecue sauce.
Right.
And then Texas typically is beef.
Right.
A lot of beef. Unless if you're in East Texas, where it's beef and pork. Smoked over pecan or oak. And they don't really have... all the research I read was saying that you let the meat shine, don't serve it with too much sauce. So, if you're a good pit master, you could do it. Right. And the last area is Alabama. I didn't know.
Really?
I didn't really know Alabama was big for barbecue, but a lot of people were talking about it.
What makes Alabama so different and special from the rest of them?
Well, they do pork and they do chicken, and then they have a white sauce, and the white sauce is from French Cajun cuisine.
Oh, really?
And it's a mayonnaise and vinegar based with spices in it. So that was the regional type.
I'm gonna have to try that. I don't think I've ever had anything that was Alabama barbecue.
Yeah, I never even heard of it until doing research on this. And then sort of the last one I wanted to talk about. It's not really barbecue as we think of it, but Hawaiian. The Kahlua pork.
Oh, I love Kahlua pork. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's you have to get a good one. Mm-hmm. And the way they do it is really like traditional way. It's really labor intensive. Dig a deep hole, layer it with lava rock that had been over an open flame, so it's really, really warm. And then you line the sides with like banana leaves. The pig is washed, salted, wrapped in chicken wire so that it holds all the meat together.
Sure.
and then it's covered in wet burlap. And then the wet burlap would steam it so that it's evenly cooked.
Okay, I gotcha.
And then the pit is filled with sand to keep the heat in the pit. Yeah, so
That does sound like a lot of work.
Yeah, dig a hole, and then you have to fill it back in. Then to get your pork out, you have to dig it.
How long does it take to cook something like that?
They say anywhere between 8 and 14 hours.
Yeah, that's a commitment.
Yeah, but
Good barbecue is always a commitment.
always, yeah, it's a labor of love.
That's true. Very true. Well, first of all, taking a look at barbecue in general, kind of have to understand what is barbecue, because, that's a debatable question in and of itself. So basically, barbecue is low and slow. It's low temperature, slow heating in a closed chamber, and it's basically the meat's cooked by hot air. So it's not exactly the flame. So if you're cooking off of a flame, that's grilling. It's a little bit different than what barbecue actually is. So a grill, when you're grilling something, is basically a metal rack over flame. Broiling is exactly the same, except it's opposite. Your heat source is above the meat, opposed to below. But with barbecue, you want to get that hot air. You want the indirect heat to really kind of cook your meat. Because a lot of times, if you're just doing a grill, that's where you do a lot of your cuts of steak. You're just doing it home.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most probably common is people tend to barbecue steak more than anything else, and more than even more than pork chops, which is a close second. Chicken breast is another one that's and those are all grilled for the most part.
Okay, so we have smoking, we have barbecuing, we have grilling, and we've got broiling, right?
Yeah.
Those were the distinctions.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, when they go out, light their propane. That's grilling
For the most part.
the most part,
Yeah.
because you've got the direct flame underneath.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you're just cooking your burgers or cooking your steaks, now you can't, most barbecue is actually smoking. That's, most of the styles that you just talked about, those have to do with smoking, and having an indirect heat away from the meat.
Okay.
And letting the air and the smoke, the smoke gives it the flavor, and the heat of the air is what actually cooks it. So getting into smoking, basically smoking's been around forever. It's one of the ways that they learned how to preserve meat long before refrigerators, So, but the smoke is the flavor, and the different woods that you use give it a different bit of flavor. You always want to use a hardwood, something like hickory, maple, and any of your fruit woods like apple, cherry. You want to stay away from soft woods like pine. You want to stay away from anything treated.
Treated, I understand, but why softwoods?
So the softwoods, from what I understand, do not get as hot.
Oh, okay. It probably also because of the softwood, it would burn faster too.
That's possible as well. Yeah. I know that you need to stay away from a lot of stuff that's green. A lot of newer wood and stuff with heavy sap. You don't want anything, with a lot of heavy, like pine. That's going to have a lot of sap. So you want to stay away from that, because all that, it's going to cook off, and then you're going to get
the residue on your food.
Yeah, and it's not going to taste good. Hickory is the most common. However, you get a lot of like apple for like your applewood smoked bacon.
Yeah.
That's really common. Some of the fruit woods work well with chicken and fish.
Okay.
And those are really good. Pine's really good for fish. Because it's or cedar, something to that effect, where you can put the fish right on the wood and smoke it that way.
Okay. And fish doesn't require a whole lot of high temperatures to cook it really quick. So
no, in fact, so there's the technique called cold smoking. You really don't want to do cold smoking at home unless you have the right equipment, because it's very dangerous in order to get food poisoning. You get botulism that forms in the meat.
So what exactly is cold smoking? If you've got cold smoking, I'm assuming you have like higher temperature smoking or something like that.
It's actually lower.
Oh, okay.
So for your temperatures, so basically for cold smoking, that's what a lot of your smoked salmon is. The meat's not exactly cooked; it's just smoked, and you have the flavor and in the being able to preserve it. Most of the time, cold smoking is below 100 degrees.
Okay,
so that's pretty cold, and your heat source isn't quite as close to your meat. you're going to have a little bit of separation there.
They'll pump it through like a chimney and into a different chamber.
And, there's different, there's really expensive rigs that a lot of barbecue places use for cold smoking that actually use ice or refrigeration to chill the smoke before it hits the meat.
Oh, okay.
So it's really fascinating, but it's not something that you should be doing at home unless you really know what you're doing.
Yeah. And you probably have to have a bigger kitchen than normal.
Yeah, bigger than mine, that's for sure. Okay, so hot smoking is basically anything between 150 to 200 degrees. That's what you're going to get the majority of your smoking. Your meats, it's going to take several hours to do. You're going to have to maintain your heat source. You can't just light it and leave it. You're going to need to be committed to sitting there and babysitting it and really making sure that your temperature stays right where you want it.
Yeah, it's a labor of love. If you're going to be a smoker, you've got to, like you were saying, you have to tend to it. You have to be there pretty much from start to finish.
Yeah. And you always need to make sure your meat is the temperature that you need it to be at when you pull it off, which is normally around, depending on what it is. If you're doing a fully cooked piece of meat, like your pork shoulder, you're looking at 160 degrees before you want to pull it off.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that I wanted to talk about was rotisserie. So you can use rotisserie on your barbecue at home if you get a fairly inexpensive setup. And rotisserie chicken, you see it in the grocery store all the time. It's way better when you do it yourself. I grew up eating rotisserie chicken. My dad would do it all the time. Basically, you want to make sure it's balanced, and you want to make sure it's staying on a steady turn. So rotisserie, you put a rod through your chicken, clamp it in place, and then let it turn.
Okay. And so when we go to the store, Winter and I, for cheap dinners and stuff, we get a rotisserie chicken and then like a couple sides and bread and stuff like that. And the huge rotisserie that they have the flame in the back, mm-hmm. and then the wheel that turns around with, I don't know, it looks like 30 chickens.
Sure, a lot.
They're skewered and stuff like that. When you're rotisserieing at home, I'm assuming it's on the grill, mm-hmm. and you close the grill lid?
No, not always.
No? Okay.
So most of the time, there's not enough room to close the lid, and you don't want your heat to be really hot. You want to put if you're using charcoal, you want to put it around the sides so it's not like right under the chicken. Okay. And if you're using propane, you want to keep the flame as low as possible.
Okay. And so, how long does a chicken? Because you use a full bird. How long does
It's going to take a couple hours.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to take a time. It's not going to take as long as like a pork shoulder or a joint of lamb or something like that. But a whole chicken will probably take you a couple hours to get done.
Okay. Do you do that yourself? You mentioned that you did it growing up with your dad.
I have. I don't have a setup for it now, which I would like to fix at some point. But yeah, the key is just making sure it's balanced to keep it an even cook. So
yeah. All right, Ike, I got one more subject for you. It's sort of the history of the sauces of the region. So, as before, I was talking about how each region has its own variation of barbecue sauce.
Right.
And that also goes down to the immigration of people across America. A lot of in the Carolinas, they use vinegar, and that was due to the British colonists. They enjoyed the vinegar tart sauces, which reminded them of home.
Sure.
So a lot of the British cuisine got transferred to vinegar-based barbecue sauce, whereas the mustard-based came from French and German. French cuisine uses a lot of Dijon mustard.
Sure.
German cuisine, they like their spicy whole mustard with their bratwursts.
And brown mustards. Things like that.
And then a large population of Germans moved from the Carolinas into Texas and became cattle ranchers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that's why, that's where Texas barbecue can sort of trace their lineage back to German immigrants. All right. And then the sauces, like I was saying, the Carolinas is vinegar-based because of the British. They also had a lot of chili flakes, so it was a little spicy. So Carolina, the vinegar and the spice. Kansas, it was tomato and ketchup, vinegar, and sugar, so it was a little sweet. And then Memphis, they used the tomato, vinegar, the molasses, and the spices. So it became really gooey, so they could base it on, caramelize it on the meat. South Carolina had a lot of Germans and French. That's where they got the yellow mustard, which was also mixed with vinegars and sugar. And then, as I said before, Alabama has the white sauce, which, I don't know what it is. I've never heard of Alabama.
Yeah, no, I haven't either.
Yeah, and they say to make it, you do mayonnaise, apple cider vinegar, sugar, salt, black pepper. It was just a light vinegar or apple cider vinegar.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I'd have to try that.
Yeah, I used to try to make my own barbecue sauce, but I could never get ratios good.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it a few times myself, and it's a whole lot easier to go down to the store and buy some.
Yeah.
And it's a lot less work. It's kind of like the same way with making your own mayonnaise.
Yeah,
it's fun to do. It tastes great, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, people can bottle anything, but if you find a really good one that's bottled, a really good barbecue sauce that's bottled, there's no way I can make it any better.
Yeah.
I say that, but,
Well, I got one more thing for you. Charcoal versus propane. Have you heard of this debate?
The big debate.
The big debate. So in a lot of research, it's comes right down to preference. There's really no benefit over doing one or the other. And I know the charcoal purists will hate me for saying that, but that's really what it comes down to. So your charcoal burns at a lower temperature than your gas, either natural gas or propane. But it puts off more radiant heat. So you're going to get more heat out of your charcoal as opposed to the higher temperature. And I know that doesn't make sense, but if you think about the radiant heat, you want that hot air to cook your barbecue. Mm-hmm. You don't want the direct flame to cook it. So charcoal, I think it's fun. It's easy. It's not as complicated as you really think. If you use a really good chimney starter to get it going, it takes about 15 minutes to really get the coals going. You don't want a flame coming off your charcoal briquettes before you actually put your meat on. You want the flame to go out and start going from there.
So I do have a question. You've mixed briquettes and charcoal.
Yeah.
Do you prefer charcoal or do you prefer briquettes? And what's the difference?
So basically, a briquette is a brick of compressed coal dust and other items that they just shove in there. So most of the time, briquettes and charcoal, you're calling it the same thing.
Okay. It's not apples and oranges.
No, it's more like red apples and green apples.
Okay.
At least in my opinion. Some people can feel completely different about that. But, there's a lot of people that say you get flavor from the charcoal, it's not necessarily true.
You're getting it from the smoke.
Right. Exactly. And if your charcoals are really well lit and they shouldn't be putting off much smoke at that point anyway. Yeah. So when you have your charcoal, the only flavor that's going to come across is whatever fuel you put on it. So if it's heavily put with lighter fluid or some other accelerant or starter that you've used to get those coals going, that flavor may come across in the meat.
Does it burn off like after a while? Okay, I use lighter fluid, let it sit for another 10 minutes and it should.
Yeah, it'll come off.
Okay.
And then the more you use, if somebody builds an inferno, it's going to take a while for that smell and for that taste to go away before you can really put your meat down on the grill. So with propane is it's fast. It's fast. It's easy. If you want to grill something at night and you've got an hour to cook dinner, and you can't take the time, light that propane grill up and do whatever you have to do. You can smoke with a propane grill. It's a little bit more complicated. You got to get your wood, just right, and you can't have your meat directly over the flame. So it's a little bit more complicated, but you can do it.
I've got a confession to make.
Go for it.
Growing up in my parents' home, they had an electric grill, and I got pretty good at the electric grill because it was you can choose the heat 1 through 10, and that's how I learned to barbecue. I'm ashamed.
I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. I will admit I'm not exactly sure what an electric grill is.
Oh, it's pretty much the heating element from like a stove on an outside grill.
Nice. So okay, I got you.
It had the grill. It had the metal grate on top, and then an electric heat coil underneath.
So basically, you're using it for grilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be able to get a lot of smoke off of that. I imagine.
No barbecuing, no nothing. It was a grill.
Yeah. Well, that works.
Yeah, that's how I grew up.
Yeah, my dad is an old Arkansas farm boy, and he loved to cook outdoors, no matter which way it was done. So we barbecued a lot.
Nice. Anything else for you, Ike?
I'm just taking a look at my notes here. So I wanted to go over a couple of safety tips when you grill,
Sweet.
especially if you don't know what you're doing. Having a good thermometer, instant read thermometer, whether it's something you jab into the meat or one of those cool infrared ones that you just shoot at the source.
Yeah. Now those can be deceiving because if it's the infrared laser, it will just read the surface temperature.
Exactly.
So if you're shooting it at a steak, it will tell you what's
the outside,
but not the inside. If you're
Right.
doing it at chicken, you might want the stick in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it. You can get them for fairly inexpensively. You can get digital ones or just regular old thermometer ones with a needle and everything. So speaking of steak, so the temperatures, when you think about rare, medium rare, most people think how red it is and how bloody it is for those that are afraid of rare meat. But when it's actually down to what temperature it is. So your rare, you're looking at 120 to 125 degrees, roughly on the internal temperature of the meat. Medium rare, you're looking at 135. Medium, 140 to 145, somewhere in that ballpark. Medium well, 150, and well done is 160 and over.
Yeah. So I have a sous vide machine.
Right.
So when I cook my steaks, I stick them in the water, sous vide them, and they don't. I like mine medium rare.
Mm-hmm.
Rare, when I go to a restaurant, I get mine rare. But when I'm cooking them at home, I do medium rare.
Sure.
And they don't bleed a lot.
No.
But I know the internal temperature is exactly 130.
Right.
And so.
Yeah. So that's a perfect. That's the way God intended his meat to be.
That's right.
So if you're
slight mooing.
Slight moving. And you want to take it off if you are grilling it. You want to take it off a little bit before it hits that temperature, about 5 degrees or less, because when you pull your meat off the source, it is going to cook. It's going to still continue to cook when you pull it off, and you want to take it off just before it hits that temperature. Except for rare. Rare, once it gets to that temperature, it's not hot enough to continue to cook. So as soon as you pull it off, it should stay right around the same temperature.
But the outside crust is going to be more hot than the inside. That's why you'll take it off early, right? Because the outside will start the crust of your steak will cook the inside a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. You get those juices will soak in, and searing your steaks will ensure that happens.
All right, quick question.
Yep, go for it.
Internal temperatures of chicken, because that's where you're going to get really sick if you undercook it.
Yeah. No, there's no such thing as medium rare chicken. Please don't do it.
I enjoy a good sushi chicken.
No, there's no such thing as sushi grade chicken. For any poultry, you're looking at 165 for your whole chickens. If you're just doing your legs and your thighs, you want to be over 170. It's safe at 165. That's probably what you want to keep it at.
Sweet.
And make sure that you're keeping your family from
Salmonella.
Yep.
Yeah, that's medium rare chicken is going to be a bad thing.
Yeah, that's not going to be good for anybody.
No.
But there's some great things that you can do with barbecue, and I highly recommend anybody that's listening that's not really done a whole lot with it to give it a shot. Especially smoking. Smoking takes a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. It's a lot of fun to do. And you can use it all the time. Like a chipotle pepper. A lot of people don't know that it's just a smoked jalapeno. They just go to the grocery store and get their chipotle peppers for their recipe. But you can easily smoke jalapenos at home. It's a little bit cheaper, but it is a lot of work. And it is fun.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what all the different, like you take a Anaheim chili and you smoke it and it becomes a smoked poblano or something like that. But each chili has a different flavor context when you smoke it.
Right.
That's why chipotles are so much different than a jalapeno. And then you could also smoke. I have a friend who smokes his beans. He does bacon and baked beans smoked, and they're just fabulous.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
You could smoke so much. You could smoke sausages. You could smoke chicken. You could smoke, like, your locks, get your salmon and smoked salmon.
Smoked salmon is amazing.
Ike, do you have any tools that you say definitely have this? You mentioned thermostats.
Yeah.
Not thermostats, thermometers.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't specifically have a brand on the thermometer. Whatever looks like it's reliable. A couple of the things that I really like a lot of for outdoor cooking in general, I really like Camp Chef. They make a lot of good products.
Yeah.
Weber has a couple of really good chimney starters for your charcoal. It's so much easier to do. I highly recommend getting yourself a chimney starter.
And with chimney starters, you don't have to have any fire starter. You just light a rolled up piece of paper underneath.
Right. Yeah, and that'll help get it going.
Yeah.
Sometimes you may need a little bit of an accelerant, like lighter fluid or something, but for the most part, you can get that going pretty fast because it's got the open air underneath to really get that. One thing I love, you need a good pair of tongs. I don't have a particular brand. I like the commercial style that you get at the restaurants.
Do you go all metal or do you like the rubber tipped?
No, definitely not when you're barbecuing. You don't want the rubber tipped. Your rubber tips are for your saute pans and non-stick cookware.
Those will melt at like 400 degrees or something.
Right. Yeah.
So.
But I prefer metal. You can get some with rubber handles, so it's not quite as hot if you just leave it sitting around on the grill. But a good pair of tongs is a necessity, as is a good spatula. My favorite is the Hell's Handle fish spatula from Mercer. I don't know if you've ever used that. It's a fish spat, but it works great on the grill.
Sweet.
It's by far one of my favorite tools.
Long and thin?
No, it's actually kind of a wedge.
Oh, okay.
It's wedge. It's it is thin, but it has holes, kind of like holes in it, that run the whole entire length of the spatula. Those holes
Make it so they don't stick, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so that's why it's a fish spat to get under the skin on the grill. But and the handle is very heat resistant. I'm not sure what the temperature rating is on that, but it's a good thing to get.
One thing that I don't like wearing aprons,
right?
But a good apron, like a barbecue apron, is something that's really needed.
Yeah.
And you can get, anything from just the white, which are cheap, the white aprons that are just like a cotton, all the way up to leather. But there's really good, like a waxed canvas.
Uh-huh.
And the waxed canvas makes it so like sauce or juice easily cleans up.
That's awesome.
And so I've got one that my sister-in-law gave me as a gift. It's a good thick apron.
Right.
And I really like that when I'm doing like barbecuing.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're using a lot of sauce. Then,
Yeah.
It's going to get messy when you're spreading that around.
If you don't care about your clothes, who cares about an apron? But
right. Yeah, and it's always good to have, especially if you're using any of the meats that may splatter. If you're using high temperature for anything, a little bit of safety there is good.
Yeah. One thing I also like, a really good grill scraper.
Right.
They have, it's always easy to just chuck your meat onto a dirty grill.
Yeah.
But it's going to, all that residual all that residual junk is going to get, and you're going to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So cleaning your grill beforehand.
Yeah. Clean your grills, people. Like, I know certain people that have never cleaned they'll clean the grate, but they won't actually clean out their grill.
Yeah.
And you should clean out your grill. I do it a couple times a year.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a lot. When you do clean your grill, though, I did have something I wanted to say about that. If you're using, there's been a lot of talk about using stainless steel brushes and the fibers coming off and people getting them in their food. You should always wipe your grill down after you scrub it really good, because you want to avoid getting that stuff in there.
Yeah. Good tips. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. How about you?
No, I think we're good.
Will you be barbecuing for Father's Day?
I don't even know what we're doing for Father's Day, so who knows? You?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I have not decided.
What is your typical barbecue? Do you go beef? Do you go pork? Do you go sausage?
It depends. So I will occasionally do a steak. I'm not a huge steak eater, but will prefer to do it myself as opposed to doing it in a restaurant.
To tell you the truth, I don't do steak on barbecues.
Really?
No.
How do you prefer your steak?
I like I said, I've got the sous vide, and then I can torch the top or just stick it under the broil.
Yeah.
But I like my sausages.
Yeah.
I like my brats outside on the grill.
Yeah. That's what generally if I have several people over, we'll do burgers, we'll do brats.
Yeah.
And that's always a win for everybody. Are you a restaurant owner or manager? One thing that's time consuming and often frustrating is scheduling your employees. Servers requesting time off, food runners asking for shift covers, employees wanting to switch their availabilities, or dishwashers calling in sick at the last minute can be a lot to juggle. Zip schedules will take that load off your hand.
So sometimes, just due to human factors, people do need to change shifts.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And zip schedules can help you.
With zip schedules, you can handle all of those scheduling tasks in just a few minutes, and your employees can use the app to communicate with each other, swap shifts, and update their availabilities. You can get your first 30 days for free by visiting zipschedules.com and use the promo code HUNGRY to receive 20% off each month for up to a year when you sign up.
Thanks, Zip Schedule. Ike, I have a question.
Yes.
Besides yourself,
Yes.
who was the most important person in the kitchen that you worked with?
That would be the manager that scheduled the shifts.
All right. If he didn't have to schedule people, would he be happier?
Yeah, he would be a lot happier.
He would be a lot happier. Same with me. The owners of the restaurant had to schedule people, and they would have been a lot happier if they didn't have to.
Yeah.
Second most important person was the dishwasher.
Yes.
If you were friends with your dishwasher, they would help you out.
Yeah, your dishwasher would take care of you.
We had one dishwasher when I worked in the restaurant, and sometimes he due to circumstances couldn't come in, and it was a scramble. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you're close with your dishwasher, they can always help you out because we had very limited tongs.
Oh.
And, you wanted to have a good pair of tongs. You didn't want to get stuck with the long tongs that didn't really work for you. You wanted the short, easy to use ones.
The 4-foot tongs.
Yeah. So, if you're close with your dishwasher, he'll make sure you're set up.
Sweet. All right. Thanks, Zip Schedule.
Yeah, thanks, Zip Schedule. If you're running a restaurant or managing a restaurant, you really need to take a look at them.
Sweet.
Let's have a food fight.
Food fight, food fight, food fight, food fight. It's winter.
This is the segment where you can email us with your relationship questions relating to food. You can email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
Disclaimer. We are in no way professional relationship experts, but you should totally listen to us anyways. If you need professional help, please seek it out.
Don't blame us.
Don't blame us.
The food fight segment of the show. Here we go.
This week's question is from
John Q.
John Q.
I've got it.
Okay, what's John's problem?
So Winter handed this to us, and this is how it goes. Dear Hungry Squared, I need to break up with someone, and I don't know how to do it. I need to break up with one of my favorite restaurants.
Ooh.
Yeah, we all have had that problem. I have been a regular at this restaurant for years, and the owners and the staff know me by name and my regular orders. The problem is they've gotten more popular and more busy, and the quality of their food has gone down. And they are increasing prices. It's not the same. I need to break up. But how? Signed, John Q.
All right, John. Well, we feel for you, buddy.
Yeah. So my first initial thought is talk with the owners.
Sure. If you have a good enough rapport with them, you can do that.
Like if you personally know them, if like you could say, hey, I've noticed this, like quality's gone down. I'm sure, they're
going to want to know if they're an owner or a manager that's worth anything, they'll want to know that.
Yeah. And you could even do it anonymously, just like,
Sure.
Don't write a scathing online review.
Yeah, stay off of Yelp.
Stay off of Yelp, stay off of Google reviews. That's, do it, send in a letter saying, hey, guys, I've noticed this, I've noticed that. I hope you can change it. I'll come back in a month.
Yeah.
One thing that I've seen with the increase in popularity in a restaurant, it's really hard because the employees are under a lot of stress.
Sure.
And then they just like, okay, I could cut this corner, I can cut this corner. And so maybe the quality is due to the fact that they're just trying to slam out so many plates.
And that's actually a good problem that owners want to have, but you definitely don't want to let your quality slide on that either. A lot of it depends as well if, how close you are with the owners. If you're just an acquaintance, and you don't think you'll run into them, just stop going. It's no problem. But, a lot of times really good restaurants are a key part in the community. Like, we're not talking about chain restaurants. We're talking about mom and pops, stuff that's been started by somebody local, and they really want it to succeed. So they will appreciate that feedback.
Yeah.
And, and if it just comes down to it, sometimes it just doesn't work, and you got to learn to let it go.
Yeah. And one thing personally, I've broken up with one restaurant myself, and I've stayed friends with one of the owners and a couple of the employees.
Yeah.
And I'll go in off times, and I'll just pop in every once in a while just to say hey. I'll bring them. I always bring them a $5 pizza, like a cheap pizza, because everybody's sick and tired of eating their own food.
Sure. Yeah. You work in there long enough, you're gonna get sick of it.
Yeah. You can only eat so much lobster. But
Well.
yeah. But yeah, just pop in every once in a while, because trends in restaurants, they come and go. One popular restaurant in a year or two can be even more popular, or it can die down a little bit.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're not always busy. So if one of the big problems is you just can't get a table at lunchtime, or can't get a table at dinner time, go an hour before, go an hour after.
Yeah. You got to be adaptable as well.
Yeah.
You can't expect something to be like, working in the restaurant. You can't expect it to be perfect every time. But the restaurants do try to make it so that it is the same every time when you come in. They want you to have a good experience, and if not, who knows what the reasoning can be. But it comes down to it, and you have to break up. It's always best to go with it's not me, it's you.
Yes, you have perfect taste. It's their quality that is gone.
That is correct.
And as a business owner, they should know that they will not retain all their customers.
Sure.
And if you have to break up with them, just go cold turkey.
Yeah.
Research what other restaurants in a 15-mile radius there are that are like that.
Yeah, and if you run into them somewhere and they say, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while," you can be honest. You can just say you've been busy. Good to see you.
Yeah, restaurants are expensive. You could always blame it on not having money.
Yeah, that's always the case.
Ike, do you think you got that covered? That question covered?
Yes, I think so. I think John will be okay.
John, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You can break up.
There's other restaurants in the sea.
Many restaurants in the sea.
Well, thanks for joining us today and for our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com, on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music. Please leave us a rating and review on iTunes, because that'll help other people discover our podcast. Share our podcast with your food nerdy friends and family. Follow us on Instagram at Hungry Squared, and follow on Facebook at Hungry Squared Podcast. We're doing more Facebook Live videos there as well. Sharon will be back next week.
All right, guys. We'd like to thank IKEA, especially IKEA Draper, Utah.
Looking forward to that smorgasbord.
Yeah, Smorgasbord. Remember, guys, June 16th, Friday. And we'd also like to thank Zip Schedules.
Yes,
thanks,
thank you,
guys.
Zip Schedules.
So join us next week for another episode of Food Nerdery.
Yes, the ladies shall be back.
And I'm sure they love you.
They do love you.
Bye.
Hungry squared, yeah, hungry squared.